We are ready.
Right.
Here we go. Well, welcome everyone to the IIBA Bluegrass BAs on the Street. Tonight we have the pleasure of talking with Will Powers, and we're very excited. This event we try to do it quarterly or so. And what it is just conversations like we're on the street with people from our business analysis community. And Will has a lot of exciting things to share with us today about where he's at with his career path, where we're going, and just to get to know him. He's one of the great members of the Bluegrass chapter, and well, let's get started. So, Will, would you like to introduce yourself, or would you like to have somebody else here that may know you just a smidge better introduce you?
Sure. So yeah, if someone wants to take a crack at it, go for it.
Okay. All right. So, Bill Powers, would you like to introduce Will Powers?
I'd love to.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome, Will Powers. Will is a recent graduate of NKU. Will has been engrossed in business analysis for a long time, not by choice, just because he lived in the same house as me. Does not live in the same house anymore as I do. He has moved on. And so Will has a tremendous interest in and I should say skill in analysis, and
Okay.
also has a tremendous interest in history,
Oh,
anthropology, with getting to know who people are and why they do what they do, which kind of fits hand in hand with analysis. And so Will has started in college. He was working for Fidelity and has worked his way up, started a new position there when he graduated, and is now an operations analyst, and has been able to bring all sorts of business analysis skills to his job and to Fidelity. Will is also currently studying for his ECBA,
ooh.
Yeah.
and is testing very well. He is in the study group currently, so we're confident that he'll be passing that exam fairly soon.
Yeah.
Wow, that is quite the introduction.
It is.
Thank you, Bill, for that.
One more thing I'd like to put out there is Will is also a world traveler who I can
Yeah.
say has been all over not only the United States but all over Europe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I've gotten to see a lot of different areas as far as world traveler. A few years ago I got the opportunity to go see a majority of Europe. Actually, it was based on history and following World War II and seeing the different locations. So going between London, Germany, France, uh, quite a few different areas. And with the United States, I've also the last few years, me and my roommate, we've had the goal of trying to see every baseball stadium in the United States. That's actually where one of these pictures behind me was. Is I was recently in San Francisco as well as Boston. Yeah, so I've gotten to see quite a lot of different places.
But who's the
Wow.
best?
That's impressive. I mean, it does fit in with your interest of analysis, right? Learning more, exploring, studying, really digging in there deep. So I can see where the interest would be with that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
What was the best
so
stadium?
when go
The
ahead.
best stadium. Oh, that's always such a hard question, but I gotta say, honestly, Wrigleyville. It's gotta be, or Wrigley Field, not yeah, Wrigley Field. Like just for the iconicness of it, the surrounding area. Yeah, it's definitely the best, I would say.
You have it.
moved moved out and upward north. Oh my goodness, that's quite the line there. Wow. So we can analyze these baseball stadiums in just a little bit. So why don't, if you don't mind, let's talk about your BA background. That with the introduction, there's so many places that we can go. So from being a world traveler or even at Fidelity, how did you start to morph into that direction or really realize that it was an avenue or something that was of interest and that you wanted to further explore it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it took quite a bit of time. So going really all the way back until I was about 10 years old. At the time, I really started taking an interest mainly in technology at the time. That's when I started learning my first programming language. Then going into high school where it again went I sort of for most of my career at that time was following sort of the developer path. I worked at the time, I was on the robotics team. And it really wasn't until part of it was with my dad himself. You know, he was able to show me parts of being an analyst, but a lot of that time I really didn't know exactly what an analyst was. It sounded interesting. But I think when I really took an interest was later in my college career. So when I went into college, I actually did start out as a business information systems major. I then
Okay.
decided and went the complete opposite way. Well, crazy way in there and switched over to anthropology. And then it was really at the time I was still at the time I was working as a sales intern with Fidelity. And I think that was really the point that I actually took a course in there called business anthropology as well as introduction to business analysis, where I started realizing that I really liked working in business. At the same time, I really liked working with people and with anthropology, with documenting people, with studying people in standardized ways. And that's where I think I sort of made that decision that I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to be a full-time developer. I also don't know if I necessarily want to work fully within anthropology. Well, business analysis really allows me to fuse those together in a lot of ways, be able to have those people aspects, those documentation aspects, while also being able to work with interesting technology. And I think that's really where I started working with sort of going down that analyst path and really realizing that I wanted to be an analyst and actually had wanted to for quite a long time. Uh, Going all the way back to even my first job that I had, which was actually a sales associate at Home Depot. And I remember one of the things there was they had a system where basically outside items weren't cataloged in inventory. And I
Okay.
remember even back in high school where I was like, well, I could totally fix this and coming up with like this whole thing like we're gonna have these people have roles scanning into an app and at the time I didn't realize that this was kind of going down that business analysis path, going forward, working with data, just a lot of that information. And I think where I truly found it was when I actually joined the IIBA, that was really the point where it sort of explained like what is business analysis. And really, I think that's where I really gained that interest. Hey,
Hey, hello, welcome. We're just getting started talking with Will.
Hi,
So,
man.
hey,
we're going to wave and say hi. So, so Will, a lot of times when we think about our BA backgrounds, many people don't start out as a business analyst, right? They explore other things, and in some part, I think it's what I've uncovered is that like the definition of what a business analyst does, or when we talk about it in the nomenclature, I mean, it's out there, but it's not something that you talk about like I'm going to be a project manager or I'm going to be a developer or you're going to do all these types of things. And it's not until you really start to realize like some of your things that you really like to do and things that you're enjoying on your job really are a business analyst skill. Plus, you don't have to only be that, right? You can be
yeah,
multi-layered. You can explore all of these other things and take all the good nuggets of what we do and how we do them and just layer them into all these other professions. So, I mean, you can be a pure one or you could just leverage the skills. And to me, that sounds like the direction you're heading. You found that you have like a lot of different interests, which are so cool. But part of it is also about just like as you get into them, understanding the skills that you're developing and you're learning about, and especially with the ECBA, they're lifelong skills, right? They're not just I'm going to use them for this job, like learning how to understand requirements or have conversations with people, like the elicitation piece of it, right? Where you're meeting with people and you're talking to them, and while you're talking to them you're gathering information, you're confirming, and by the time you're done they don't even realize what you have possibly
yeah.
done, but it's all part of that skill set of just having an interest and being like asking those questions, right? Like you want to learn more. So do you think from a BA background that I know you're working on your ECBA, Hello. That you're going to continue on with that path? Do you really feel like with where you're going that it's really setting you on the direction you think where something that you're going to love doing?
I definitely do. It's been a really interesting class, and just going through the ECBA learning has been incredibly insightful. And just like exactly like you said, within my current role, I don't necessarily work directly as a business analyst. I do work as an operations analyst. But just since we're going through there, there's just so many little areas that it's like once you read it in the book, and then I'm sitting, say, with like a meeting at work with the tech team, or I'm meeting with a lot of times I'll work with project managers or business analysts, and they drop a term or they say like a term or something. I'm like, I know that. It
Right.
really is just those skills or being able to actually work with them and being able to say like, for example, when we're doing a lot of times with my current role, we'll be documenting procedures, and before it was maybe just we'll write this down over here, but actually being able to know these processes. Because just like you said, I think that there's quite a few roles that even if it doesn't necessarily say that you're a business analyst, there's definitely those aspects thrown in there that I think really with the ECBA, the biggest thing is that you can just to have those skills for when those times do come up. And
Right.
so, yeah,
Right. And also too, it's a good, like a foundation, right? Like
yeah,
because you're learning how and where as you uncover and as your career grows or just your interest grows, you know how to dig in and you know where to go. And also you have your community of people to ask those questions about like how would you do this or how could I learn more about this? So it's not left to, you've got a path forward for where you're going.
yeah, exactly.
Yep. So tell me about your role in your organization. You touched on that a little bit. You know, how are you doing? I mean, are you at a place where you want to be? Do you have aspirations for other things in the company? Where's your direction heading you or your interest taking you?
Yeah, sure. So I would say within my current role, as much as I do really enjoy it. So working currently as an operations analyst, I'm actually in a very interesting department. So the department I'm in is actually known as emerging products, and essentially this is products that are basically they're not quite as well known currently, but they believe that they're going to become more popular. And so
Okay.
really it's been really interesting this role because starting out there was three people on the team and we were managing about 20 clients with it. Now we're reaching around 300 clients and have about 30 people on the team. And throughout that
Oh,
process I've had yeah, it's been really interesting for
wow.
especially for about 2.5 years. And I've had the opportunity then to really, on top of just being an operations analyst, really wear multiple hats you could say, being able to help with like writing processes and really just helping this product develop as it goes. But as far as the future of my career, I really do hope to take more of actual like official business analyst role. That's really where I'm hoping to go, especially with receiving the ECBA certification. It's something that has interested me for quite a while now, and as within my role right now, I'm starting to get involved in those aspects more, but I really do hope to eventually be able to reach the point of actually being, say like a full-fledged business analyst. That's currently the goal.
Okay, excellent. Well, you've found the right place to learn more about it and become certified and make friends and enjoy the learning and the career path forward. Now, within your organization, do they have like a BA Center of Excellence? I mean, do they have a team of people, or are you having to carve this out and just drive it forward with like you identifying as a business analyst, but not actually having that role?
They don't necessarily have it as so they do have certain aspects of that, but generally they're a bit interesting that the definition they often have of business analyst can change quite a bit depending on the role. So it is more of it often feels more of like trying to carve out the path and really figuring out like they also have quite a few different terms for what would be considered a business analyst. So just kind of figuring out like this team looks interesting and working with the analysts within that team. So it's a bit less of a direct path, but yeah, I would say it'd be closer to like carving it out to an extent.
Okay, well, that's always fun to do, be able to
Yeah.
be, there's I think in all of our careers, there's been times where we haven't really been recognized as a BA, but have been doing the work, and then you realize one day that you've got all those skills because you've been doing it. You're just doing it as part of something else that hidden BA skills.
Exactly.
Now, from a like within your organization itself, do they have different like approaches to, or frameworks that they're using? Are they using Agile or Waterfall, or are they really, what direction are they going?
Generally, most of the work that we do uses an agile framework. I think it's interesting because when we took the ECBA class, one of the things they mentioned is even in schools now, agile is really the thing that they've been teaching. And I can say like I've never actually worked quite within a waterfall environment. It's always been
Right.
between college and going into currently with Fidelity. Everything they really strive to try to have an agile environment with everything we work on.
Okay. So you haven't had the fun of Waterfall. Well, I think
Yeah.
that we have to eventually do a BA game or technique to show you the excitement of old school Waterfall, It's still in
Yeah.
use. It's still in use. Now, with Agile, are you using like any methodologies like SAFe, or are you using any tools for that?
Um, so it is from my role itself, we don't necessarily. It's something that we've slowly been getting into is trying to within the operation side try to work within more
Okay.
really work within tools of ad or within agile itself. But as of right now, we don't necessarily use any tools within my current area.
Okay. Yeah. But you can still get the work done without a tool.
Yeah.
So
But you use
definitely.
Jira, don't you?
What'd you say?
Don't you use Jira?
Yeah, okay. So in that, yes, we do use Jira.
Okay.
It was,
So
yeah, in
that
the back
is,
of my head is, yeah.
yeah. Well, I should have brought up Jira because I use Jira all the time myself. So, yeah, I mean, well, you think about it with Jira, you can set up a Scrum board or a Kanban board and work your way through it. So, yeah, you are learning or using all of those, agile practices that way. So,
Does Trinity, I'm sorry, not Trinity, does Fidelity use Scrum or Kanban?
Generally we use Scrum for as much as or for everything I've worked
okay.
on. It's always been Scrum. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So, X amount of weeks sprints, your board,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
story points,
exactly.
estimates, all that kind of stuff. See, you're agile,
Yeah.
no problem.
he's a
Exactly. So yeah, you sounds like the two of you have had a conversation or two about Jira
Yep.
recently. I enjoy it. I think with Jira it does make a big difference. There's a lot of other agile boards that you can use out of the box. I mean, like even like Microsoft Planner and different things where they try to set it up to where you can try to get that agile experience. But having a tool like that really does help you to really live that experience more.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
Okay, so we won't go too deep into Jira here. So with all the stuff that you're doing, so you talked about being a world traveler and you talked about business analysis work. So, what are you finding satisfying about, like either your not your hobbies, but your interest in this business analysis work and like bringing it all together? I mean, it's not all about, where we go to work every day. We take a piece of ourselves there, but we spend so much of our thoughts and time elsewhere. Tell us some more about that. At the beginning, you're starting to share and you were saying talking about baseball field stadiums that you were visiting. Can you share some more about that?
Sure. Yeah, and I think that it really stems from so ultimately, while I do enjoy baseball, one of the things I've always loved is just, being able to travel, meeting different people, and really just understanding different ways of life, which I think can be applied to business too. It's one of the things I've always loved doing is being able to understand like how do different roles work, and just being able to see that. I think that applies to cities too, just being able to see, how do these different cities, how do they work differently from each other? What differences are there? How do people live in these cities? And how does that affect the experience? I think that's just something that between anthropology, between business analysis is just always interests me is just being able to understand the differences and understanding, how is it different?
Right.
And yeah.
Right. And getting to know people because it is
Yeah.
it is interesting, when you're out and about, whether you're at work and you're having conversations with people, so much of the conversations really do end up evolving around some technique or some skill set that you use from business analysis, right? You're either interviewing somebody in a formal or non-formal way because you want to learn more about them and they're giving you information and you keep asking and retrieving. And then I don't know about you, but there are many times when you're having conversations with people, you're also trying to help them come up with a solution, right? Like you're talking the
Yeah.
pain points and what is going on, and then what would current state look like, and not in a such those terms, but really in that kind of conversation, right? Like what's next? We do that here as a team. Like, what are we doing today? What are we doing tomorrow? How do you get there? And building that plan out. So it's cool that you're able to do that with your travels and with meeting people. Do you run into people that actually do business analysis work on your travels?
I would say to an extent I have, and actually that is a great way to put it as well. Actually, just kind of a funny way to think about it is when I was in New York City trying to figure out like navigating the subway, the amount of like planning and just trying to go into figure out the most efficient route. But I would say I have run into people that work within business analysis. Actually, one of the most interesting places I get to see when I was out in San Francisco, we got to go up to Palo Alto, and so being able to just being able to meet people up there and just being sort of the one of the tech hubs of the United States. You get to meet a lot of people that work in different areas. I'm sure people that we ran into are working for companies like Facebook, Google, just all
Okay.
of those out there. So yeah, I would say I definitely I'm sure
Okay.
that's some of those. Yeah.
Cool. That is awesome. So I'm going to take a sip of water and I'm going to ask Bill or Aaron, do you have a question for Will? Anything? We still
Yeah,
have more things to discuss,
I,
but do you have a question? I'm
I
giving
have a question.
somebody else an opportunity here.
What was the award that you won in high school at Trinity?
Yeah, back in high school, I was able to win, or I won the IT award when I graduated. Actually, something really cool on that too. I just saw this literally yesterday on Facebook. I saw that my high school, Trinity High School, they're actually building an entire STEM center, which I mean, it's just amazing considering like I know when I was in robotics at the time, and we were literally it was a group of about four of us that would meet in the library after school, and I mean we all basically crowded around one Windows computer with a license to be able to program. It's just so funny, and now I'm like looking, and now they've got like robotics labs and just all these incredible things. I'm like just how it progresses. It's really awesome, and to know that I was one of the people to help actually get that ball rolling, it's awesome.
That is that is awesome. But think about like the intersection of that and learning something new and then the direction of your career. Don't you think that as a business analyst, we have the unique ability to drive things forward because we're not just developing and we're not just telling people what to do, we're actually problem solvers and to try to help people understand what it is that they truly want. So like, having that ability, and the opportunity to earn that awards. So what was the name of the award?
It was specifically they named it just the IT award.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. You
Was
and
it
it
should
was
wear a pin like I'm the IT award winner. So
be great. I do have
at
a
our
I
next
do
meeting.
actually
yeah,
have to
he's got
show it off next time.
the
You
trophy
should.
glass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
Awesome.
Mouth.
So are there, as you're digging in every day, are there things that you're really finding satisfying? Like, there's so much out there and so many things that you can do, but are you finding areas where you really are finding like not great joy, but just is very interesting and you really want to help to take your career or just your learning in a certain direction?
I yeah, I would say really one of the things that I've always had an interest in process improvement. I think this is something that especially with being or with being working with the IIBA now and the ECBA has really been able to help me. But this is something, I mean, even since I was a kid, I've always loved is, I mean, throughout my time at Fidelity, even going back to the phones, just coming up with like at the time like with the different ideas as far as I had so many just like basically I'll the way I just am is I'll look at a process and I'll immediately in the back of my head it's already like I got the hamster wheel turning back there. I'm like, oh, we could switch this around, we could automate this, and like it's something that I've just always loved doing. And really before it was something I gravitated towards development, but I think with business analysts, it really has provided a framework for me to be able to actually refine these skills and not just come up with these ideas, but actually be able to, work in a how would you call it, a standardized manner to be able to actually achieve these. So that's something I've just always loved, and I think that yeah,
Excellent. Well, what's interesting about what you just said is from like a process improvement perspective. I'll share a little bit about my background in just a minute. But when you go out and do a internet search and they talk about business process management certifications, guess what pops up under that? The CBAP, which
does it
you're well on
really?
the way to do that. Yes, it sure does. Because so much of what we do is about process improvement in thinking through things. I mean, you can go different areas, right, with like truly business process associates or Six Sigma. Um, you can do ITIL, and then there's the CBAP. So it also Scrum, right? So there's a lot of different things that talk about like help to bring in that world of business process improvement. I actually started out becoming a process improvement manager way back in the day. That is actually how I got into IT, was doing that. I was working for a company in the accounting department, and they needed, there's always somebody that they need to do IT, right? If you don't have an IT department, there's always somebody on the team that has some skill. And I would help people all the time. And then it evolved into process improvement, which is really all about business analysis, meaning understand what people are doing and then how to improve it, right? Because that's so much fun, right? The somebody's doing something, you're like, there's got to be a better way. There's so many, either based on your experience or just like a fresh mindset. So look at you all on your way to making that happen with the ECBA. So
Yeah,
and then you can
on the
take it
path.
all of those different directions, right? It's just a great foundation.
It absolutely is. I mean, yeah.
And then you think about some of the other certificates that we have. And as you know, the Bluegrass chapter loves to do certification class. But I mean, data analytics takes you a long way. If you have the agile practices, the CBAP. So even if you want to get into the cybersecurity, so there's so many different ways that you can explore um, business analysis as well as the other. So I'm going to ask the question a little bit differently. So what do you find most satisfying about what you're doing?
Um, I would say really, I mean, I hate to keep going back to the same subject, but really with the product I'm currently in, it really has
Okay.
been just being able to continue to eh, make the process more efficient, I would say. Just,
Okay.
starting out from being such a small product, and at the time we had, we're quite limited in what we had. And really since then being able to be part of this product, like for being as big of a company as it really does in a lot of ways feel like working for a startup, being in this role, going through and saying, okay, so we need to, this is happening, as well as with being in so the area I work in, student debt repayment, which is
Okay.
always changing, or regulatory wise, things are always
Hmm.
changing. So it's always, we always have to adapt to it. And really just being able to be a part of that, being able to help this product grow, and just it's just amazing to see that, so now that we've got some of these larger clients on board, and just being able to help with that and continue to have the process run efficiently and continue to improve. I think that's really what I enjoy about it.
Excellent.
Would you say that you have any type of knack for software?
I would say so. That's definitely the other side of it is, I've learned quite a few different programming languages as well. So I've worked with Python quite a bit, as well as Java. One that I've actually started recently is R. I think that that's really interesting from the data analytics side.
Definitely.
I, yeah, so that's one I've been learning
Mhm.
recently. So I've got that software side as well, which I think is really good, pairs quite well with business analysis. And I enjoy it a lot now, even like a lot of, it's always fun whenever our team, we meet with the development team and a lot of the rest of my teams, they're going through these terms and everyone's like, yeah, yeah, that sounds good. And I'm like, oh, actually being able to ask the IT questions and say like, hey, being able to just kind of talk with them and actually understand how things are going. So
Okay,
that's a big side too.
So would you
very
say
cool.
that you are good at infusing the different tech and software with the business analysis techniques?
Yeah, I would say I absolutely am. I know the softer side of it. I know the development as well as the processes that go into it. But then I have the people side, and with business analysis, I know how they work, and I think that it makes a nice pairing.
So sounds like leading questions there. So are you able to use R to do the analytics to give outcomes or insights into like the product that you're working on? Or do they, I mean, are you able to report out or look at any of the ways that you're doing it to measure it?
To an extent, I have. So I haven't been able to use R yet. That's one that actually I did find it
Okay.
really interesting the other day. So I've been using Power BI and I actually realized that R
Mhm.
was integrated within it, which is just
Yep.
really interesting. But I have been had the opportunity to use Power BI quite a bit as far as improving the processes that I do. So a lot of the work I handle is working with clients to get funding basically in and out and being able to identify defect or identify issues if there's overfundings or basically just making sure the process runs smoothly. But I've been
Okay.
able to greatly utilize Power BI to allow me to integrate both Tableau reports and mainframe
Mhm.
data to find a lot of a lot of the work that I would do, it would end up being maybe 30 minutes of going through Excel spreadsheets and trying to find these issues. And I've been able to use Power BI to pull in both these reports, identify primary keys, basically link these together, and now I've got multiple dashboards going that it'll identify them without having to do that work. So I think
Well,
that that's yeah.
yeah, that's excellent. Quite honestly, that's definitely driving value in what you're doing. I mean, and people need and want that. Not everybody has that skill set, but you will love R when you get there, and I'm sure you're going to be able to tackle that.
Are
I'm
you a
So,
fan?
excited.
Are you a fan of Visio?
Um, I do like Visio. To be honest, I haven't used Visio as much. Lucid Charts is the one that I've worked with the most. But I
okay.
do like Visio. I think that, I mean, any Microsoft product, I think is quite, a majority of them are quite well designed. But I am a big fan of Lucid Charts. I love the user interface, the adaptability. It's very nice to work with, as well as Miro is the other one that maybe a topic that we can go into a bit, but I've been working with quite a few or with teams on what they have is what they call the incubator. So we've actually been working on a project or for crypto, and so we've been using Miro to track all of our different projects in there.
Okay, which is
Yeah,
perfect because that's definitely an agile method to be able to track your projects and do JAD sessions and pull requirements and move things forward. I mean, you don't have to use the traditional Jira or whatnot. So that's excellent. And from a like when I think about Visio's come a long way. But if you're a true swim lane person, like you really truly want to do a hardcore swim lane, you might want to go with Visio. But Lucid has all of those amazing templates in there, just like Miro, so that you could do so many different things and really just take the your business analysis work from being maybe not so interesting to very, very interesting.
yeah,
When I worked at Disney, we used to do JAD sessions in like Miro, and we would have personas for people like Sugar Mama and different types of things. So, maybe you can have some personas in there for Crypto King or some other types of stuff.
yeah. It's a good idea.
So, wow. So, Bill, I'm glad that you're bringing these out.
Yeah.
Any more interesting software that Will has been elusive in trying in sharing with me? You've got
Yeah.
quite a few
I've
software
had
skills there.
quite a bit actually within software. So one of my other skills that I've it started actually also in high school, but I've been able to help with quite a bit is working with VBA or Visual Basic for applications. Uh,
Okay.
that's one of those things that I found pretty much every company you always hear up on or at the surface. A lot of people say, "Oh, you don't need VBA," and then somebody needs a macro, and suddenly,
Yes.
it's like, who on this team knows VBA? And it's helped me so many times, both within my current role and past roles, just for being able to automate something, having something that can run on essentially any computer that runs Excel. So
Right.
I've worked with that as well as quite a few other programming languages. I've one of the first that I learned was Java. I've worked in the past when I was at Northern Kentucky University with
Mhm.
my fraternity Alpha Sigma Phi. At the time, we needed a system to actually track our points for events, and I was able to use Java and actually design a full scale application that it utilized both Microsoft Power Apps as well as Java for the back end and SQL, and allowed for user tracking. Or and that so yeah, I've had quite a bit of
Oh,
experience in there.
right. Well, what's interesting, look at all your skills. And I think about, we talk about BA techniques, right? Like the Babak has all these BA techniques. And then when you ask people in the world, what template are you using? Like old school world template, like what are you using to track or store or all of that? And you've named so many of the tools that people now use instead of like your old school toolkit. I think it would be kind of fun if our chapter challenged you to come up with, we could have, we could do something here with our BA techniques to say, we're going to take it from this to this, and what would we do with some of all those cool tools that you're talking about? You know what I mean? Just like flip it
Yeah,
on a dime and make it much more interesting. Like if you want a BA toolkit, you don't want old school. You want these new things with all these products that people are using. So I see some work ahead of you here because
yeah,
we certainly think people would be very interested to learn how to do these things using something else other than what we've historically done.
I agree. Challenge accepted.
All right. All right. You do not know what you just got yourself into, but you will find out. So speaking of that, and hot topics like where you could take it. Um, I know that you've been sharing so much about like STEM and the software you've been using and the different things you're doing from just a new school, different technology way to bring value. And all those things are great because so many times those things are what a business needs, right? We just need somebody that can write VBA to help us solve something. How do we detect something? How do we fix something? Just like make it a repeatable type of function instead of digging into a spreadsheet for hours. So you want to do we want to talk about like some of the new hot topic areas? Like, do we want to talk about more about the data analytics piece you were talking about? Or do you want to talk about digital or machine learning or any of those? I know you have some interest there.
Yeah, I would. I always love talking about AI and really just the hot topics because I think it is really interesting. I'll say starting off on there is I think machine learning and specifically the idea of chatbots. I think that this is
Right?
something that, such as, for example, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, or my personal favorite recently is the Pandas 3 library, which is
Right?
one that's created by Meta. I think this is one that, just kind of going into it, I think it's something that's going to be a major for both business analysis as well as multiple areas in business. I think that it's going to be a major thing going forward and continuing to grow. I mean, it always amazes me really within the IIBA classes, some of the stuff or some of the events that they've had,
Mhm.
just seeing some of the examples. I know even during the ECBA class, one of the coolest things I actually did was I wanted to try to practice some of the skills that I learned. So I used, I believe it was ChatGPT, and I just said, I want you to pretend that you're a project sponsor and I'm a business analyst. And basically, I'm going to talk to you. And I just had a full conversation with it, asking like, hey, can you give me like what requirements do you have? And really just being
Okay.
able to practice those techniques. I think that's very interesting, as well as I've seen now they've got some of the tools out there with it being like Google Gemini being able to export documents to Excel or to Google Sheets, their version of it. So yeah, I think that's going to be quite important in the future.
That is very, very cool. So one of the things that I recently did was using Miro, was setting up one of the templates within it to take like when people, you have a product evaluation, right? Like say you're trying to evaluate three products and you're asking some simple questions, you're using one of the templates and they have AI embedded in it. So it'll
Really?
take the answers from some of your notes and correlate that and do your briefing for you. So I thought that was really cool because people are, typing their things, their thoughts, like I need to do this or I want to do that, or I and so it's able to do that even within Miro. So it's like having the ability to save that much time, right? When you're taking something, you're trying to smooth it over, right? You're like grammatically correct, and what does it mean? And it's hard to do that. Even, like Zoom with their AI in there now, they're trying to, send you notes. So some of it's good, some of it's bad. So are you able at Fidelity to be able to do that yet, or is it's still kind of like off limits for your work?
As of right now, it's sort of off limits for the time being. I know that there's been talks of internal work on it, but as of right now, I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of companies are running into right now is with stuff like, with ChatGPT and all the cloud-based applications,
Mhm.
that anything you give to it is, it goes back into its repository and can be pulled back out by anybody. That
Right.
is, yeah. And so I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of companies have had to tackle with it. That
Hmm.
is actually, I did want to mention, that's sort of why I mentioned actually one of my recent favorites is the Pandas 3 library, which is, again, it's made by Meta, but it can be completely locally hosted. So it doesn't actually have to be a cloud server. So, for example, I actually have a chat bot similar to ChatGPT that I'm able to run right off of my own computer, which I mean is really amazing. I think it's gonna really drive forward the future as far as chat and AI technology,
Oh, wow.
especially. Yeah,
Tell us more about that.
yeah, definitely. So I just realized I called it Pandas 3. I'm so sorry. It's Llamas 3. Wrong name, but
Llamas,
yes,
pandas, they're both cute.
Yeah.
is an animal. But
No
yeah,
worries.
it's been really interesting. So it's very easy to get started for anybody that's interested. And if you go to the website Olama, it actually it provides the tools for getting started with it. But from there,
Okay.
you can run it on almost any device. I've actually seen people, even though it's a bit slow, running it on devices as small as a Raspberry Pi, which is essentially a microcomputer. It's really interesting. And then the other part that's cool about it is also, I believe it's officially open source. So if you actually see Olama is sort of like a host for the different languages. So I've seen a lot of people who
Right.
have on their website, they've actually trained it for quite a few different tasks. You can download like hundreds of different versions of it, going from ones that are dedicated specifically to business all the way down to somebody literally saying, "Hey, I want this to act like someone from Lord of the Rings." Like they really got some crazy ones on there. But making
That
this
would
both,
be crazy.
yeah, I mean, just making it widely available. But I mean, it's amazing that companies can train it on their own data sets. And again, the biggest thing is that it's an isolated environment. So when you're sending data into it, it's not, and the only people being able to access it are ones that are specifically given permission by the
Right.
company.
Which is which is always the concerning part. I had worked with a company where we were trying to get our studio in there, and because it was
Mhm.
open source and because it wasn't, uh, uh, wholly solely hosted, and where you had that opportunity where people could get to your data based on how it was being implemented at that time. They've since come out with different you know ways to cordon off the data, but that's a real thing, right? Like if you're like with what you're doing in your job, if somebody were to find out some of your secrets on how you were doing something, they might try to game it, right, to be able to
Yeah.
to their benefit. So especially if you're getting into crypto and all of that. So do you think like with these things that you're really getting interested, involved in, like with the machine learning and the chat GPT and all of this stuff, would you go forth and like make within your company you have right now, try to find a different space or maybe create and build something as a company? What,
Yeah,
any thoughts there?
yeah, I would say that I would. One that I sort of briefly mentioned earlier is so I am a part of a program within the company that they have every year known as the incubator. And essentially what it
Right.
is it's essentially it's a event that they hold where over a series of weeks you work with different groups to try to pitch new ideas for the company.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was really interesting last year I was in it, and my team that I'm still working with, we're still trying to refine our idea since we have the next iteration of it coming up. But what we I think that's I've been able to work within there. So specifically the product that we were trying to pitch at the time is we were working with cryptocurrency and the idea with blockchain that we were trying to make a platform for companies, not to go too far into the weeds with it, but just to kind of give an idea of what we were trying to do with that project is we were trying to make it so that companies they could use the power of blockchain to essentially allow for tracing of products, which is another hot topic that's been really popular recently. I don't know if it's you saw a news article recently. Home Depot actually they started using blockchain for tracking inventory, but we
Yep.
were trying to do it in sort of an open source way that we were trying to utilize a cryptocurrency known as Solana, and basically it would allow the user to have control of their wallet, complete traceability for the company in an isolated environment. It can get quite complicated with the explaining the idea, but it's been really interesting. I mean, and just being able to work with other people around there. There is some of the projects that we saw pitched were around different areas as far as AI. Again, cryptocurrency had quite a few, but working down that space, I loved being part of the team and just being able to learn some of these new ideas and see some of these innovations.
Well, you have a lot to be proud of with the skills you've learned and the skills you've built. And, so many of the things that you've talked about today really do fit in the business analysis world. I mean, so many of these techniques or skills that you have are like critical cornerstones or foundation blocks that will really help you get there. I mean, as you've been talking, I've been thinking like you could probably at some point enjoy and sit for all of the certifications because you would use them, right? The data analytics, when you're talking about Power BI reports and extrapolating data and trying to find ways to determine defects and all of that, you know, that's one part of what we do, the doing things in an agile manner, et cetera. So I think that you had a shiny, bright future ahead of you because you're already doing so many things that many people have taken much longer to try to learn and understand and move forward. I think it's fantastic that you're part of that incubator. I mean, what an opportunity for you. And it sounds like you're having a lot of fun with that.
Absolutely, it's been an incredible experience.
It sounds like it. It's like fantastic. So I've been taking up so much of your time. Does anybody else have any questions? Because I still have more if nobody else does. But does anybody have a question for Will? I mean, I'm sure if they were to ask what you'd like for Christmas, we'd allow that, of course. That is coming up. There's a favorite Thanksgiving dish, but does
Are
anybody have anything they want to ask Will?
you coming home this weekend?
Yep, I'll be there.
I think you need to bring some of your cool tools and programs and start showing your dad some of them. So,
Yeah, oh, he does.
Yeah,
all right, it
yeah.
sounds like it does. It
I always
does.
love whenever I come home, like got my laptop, it's like, oh, you got to check this out, or
So much. There's so much fun things to learn, and I do think I gave you the challenge earlier where we're going to work on BA techniques and take them to that next evolution. So I think, Aaron, that's going to be something that we should consider on what we can do for BA techniques. It's like flipping it from old school to new school. So
yeah,
I think we're going to have some fun there.
yeah. Glad to be a part of it.
Okay. Well, when, as part of you're part of the Bluegrass chapter, and, we as a team spend time together, right? Like we, attend meetings and we work on things. But honestly, I did not know all of this richness of your interest in your life and all of the things you're doing. So I'm so honored that you have taken the time to meet, not just for BA on the street, but just to really share more about yourself. You've got such a shiny future ahead of you, and I just am very much looking forward to seeing where you take it, and just try to learn as much as I can from you on all the new things that you're doing, because I think that you are definitely can be a trendsetter in helping us to evolve the way we think and do business analysis by just using some of these newer things that are coming out that are just the tipping edge of where they're going.
So I appreciate it. And I appreciate you having me on this. This has been it's been really fun going through the interviewing.
Yeah, talking about yourself, always so much fun. So, and you have a great support model with your family here.
Yeah,
So this has been fantastic. So, unless there's other questions, we can wrap it up for today for this version of BAs on the Street. And it's been great to learn more about you and to see where you're going in your future, and for you to know that whatever you need from your community, from a BA community, there's so many people here that want to help and support. So please just let us know if there's anything that we can do to help you advance your career.
I greatly appreciate it. I always enjoy working with the IIBA. It's always fun and incredibly insightful.
Great. Well, thank you again. And with that, awesome job, Will. And, we may have to ask for a presentation on the baseball stadiums at our next,
Sure.
just throwing that out there. We're going to need a presentation. So,
Go Cubs.